I gotta tell you, I'm very excited today. We're gonna be talking about the best news of this year, in my opinion. We learned on Friday evening that the FDA approved a safe and effective vaccine for public use. This vaccine started to arrive right here in Shreveport yesterday morning. The pandemic, but still, it's very, very important to note that the pandemic is not yet over. Everyone still needs to wear masks, practice social distancing, avoid large crowds. But now you can at least do all that knowing that this pandemic's days are numbered. This vaccine is a game changer, but vaccines only work if enough people take them. So we strongly encourage vaccination for everyone who can. One of the unfortunate things we have to contend with is widespread misinformation at this time. When researching the vaccine, please trust reliable sources like the CDC or the Louisiana Department of Health. I laugh, but I still have to say this. Facebook memes, YouTube videos are not reliable sources of information. The vaccine was developed quickly because we are in the middle of a global pandemic, but corners were not cut. Incredible resources were invested to build capacity up to meet the same rigorous scientific standards for all vaccines. And Dr. Lewis will elaborate on that shortly. But I want everyone to know that this is a safe and effective vaccine that the public can trust and that will protect them and their families, and to speed up the day when we can return to our normal lives. The fight against COVID-19 has been long and hard, and we have all made so many sacrifices. This virus has robbed us of nearly 500 of our friends, our family members, co-workers, and neighbors. Local healthcare providers, first responders, frontline workers in our business community have made incredible sacrifices and been there for us each and every day, and I want to thank them for that. Every single person in our community has been impacted by this pandemic in one way or another, but this vaccine can bring it all to an end. We need to listen to the experts and trust them, not unreliable sources. And with that being said, at this time, I will invite Dr. David Lewis, the Chief Medical Officer for Oschner LSU.
Thank you, Mayor Perkins. It's good to be here today. As you all know, 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. We've gone through a lot. We've recognized new heroes amongst us, the healthcare workers that are fighting this virus on a day-to-day basis. And we have many of those over with Oschner LSU. And I want to congratulate them and thank them personally for what they do day in and day out to help the citizens of this area. Many of you have reached out and shown your gratitude to our healthcare workers, particularly those on the front line, and we want to thank you for that also. I don't think anybody has not been touched by this virus. I mean, this virus has currently cost the lives of over 300,000 Americans, and that's tragic. But as the mayor said, this potentially is a new day, and it is a new day. However, we've got a long way to go to get there. So a vaccine was released by the FDA, as you all know, on Friday. This vaccine was extensively studied. It was studied here in Shreveport at LSU Health. It was also studied down at Ochsner at our main campus on Jefferson Highway. I personally was in the Pfizer study. I was one of 44,600 people that participated in that study, and I'll talk more about that in just a very few minutes. But the FDA did approve the vaccine after rigorous studies, and they did not cut any corners whatsoever. The scientific merit behind this vaccine is just as much as any other drug or vaccine that we've had in the past. And they put their stamp of approval on it, as did the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. A lot of people have asked me, well, how is it that a vaccine can come out this quickly? Because normally new drug development and new vaccine development takes years and years. Well, first of all, unlimited resources were given to these companies to be able to accomplish this. And that doesn't normally happen. Usually they have budgets and they have time frames, and these things take time and they go through different steps. But the FDA maintained that every step had to be undertaken, and they were undertaken. And ultimately, after rigorous scientific method, what has come out is a highly effective vaccine by multiple manufacturers. And these are now available, several of them here in the United States, and are being given here in the Shreveport area. And I know that we'll be giving them a little bit later on today. These vaccines are very, very effective, 95% effective. That's very impressive. We still have a lot of questions. How long are we going to be immune? We're not totally sure, but there is some preliminary data to suggest that we may be immune for a long period of time after having this vaccine. I mentioned that I was in the study, and it was a placebo-controlled trial, meaning that half of the patients or participants got the vaccine and half of them did not. I believe that I got the vaccine because of the symptomatology that I had. I had a sore arm the day after the vaccine, and that lasted for a couple of days. I had joint aches and pains. I didn't feel very good. And so these are all signs and symptoms that you wouldn't get if you got saline. And so and these are the same signs and symptoms that people who receive the vaccine will, some of them will have. But when you look at the risk and the benefit far outweighs any small risk that is available. And so we are starting to vaccinate at Oschner LSU. And as you're aware, the vaccinations will be, first of all, for the frontline workers first. And we're not just going to do the physicians, we're going to do anybody that takes care of patients. So the dietary people, the nurses, assistants, whoever is there in the hospital that is caring for patients on the front line for these COVID patients will be receiving the vaccination first. And also our ER personnel as well as our urgent care personnel, because they're exposed to this particular virus at a much higher rate. We are encouraging everyone at our institution to get vaccinated, and we're having a lot of success. A lot of people are signing up and they're wanting to move forward. And the plan is for this to be available to the general public hopefully in the spring, if not sooner, possibly in the summer. I'm sure there will be a staged approach, very similar to what we mentioned just a few minutes ago with us doing the ones at the highest risk first and then moving down and getting everyone done. As the mayor said, this pandemic is far from over, and we're at a very critical point in the pandemic. This is our third wave. We have more patients in the hospital with COVID right now than we've ever had. We have more patients in the ICU than we've ever had. And this is a very scary time for all of us with the holidays coming up. And so I want to encourage everyone to not let your guard down. This is not the time for us to stop being diligent. Please wear your mask. Please social distance. Yes, I believe that the end is in sight and that we will accomplish the goal and that we have ultimately beat this virus, but we have months to go. So please, for the sake of your loved ones and your friends, please continue to social distance. There are going to be a lot of questions about this vaccine. I'm going to take a few here in just a minute, but if you're watching this and you have questions that may not be asked, we have a website at ochsner.org/vaccine that all the frequently asked questions are available to you. And so with that, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Describe again these side effects, potential side effects. You kind of touched on them a little bit.
Yeah, so they're usually local. I know the day that I got my injection that it was not discomforting at all. It was the next day, and it lasted for a couple of 3 days, quite honestly. I took a non-steroidal is what I took, and like ibuprofen, and it worked very well. So, also, you can have a low-grade fever. You may not feel well, almost like a mini flu, if you will. And so we're kind of watching that because some people don't come to work after they get it, okay? Quite honestly.
Well, some people after, I think it was less than a week ago, there were the media reports that the FDA commissioner was going to be fired if he didn't get it approved by that day. Obviously, there's a lot of pushback from the White House. So people, when they hear stuff like that,
Sure.
they worry about, you know, or is this just been shoved out the door before it's completely ready? Reports like that tend to make people nervous. So I'm sure you heard that as well. How would you reassure people that it hasn't been shoved out the door too quickly?
I would just tell you, a study with 44,600 patients in it is a very, very, very large clinical trial. And it was not just looked at for how efficacious it was to achieve a high immunity rate, but also looking at side effects and other parameters. And so, you know, I can't really comment on what the White House does and doesn't do. I will just tell you that I would have thought they would have done that a long time ago if they possibly could have, but that didn't happen, okay? And so, and I will also say that the NIH would never cut any corners. I just don't believe that that would happen. The Louisiana Department of Health, our governor, I mean, the number of people that are stepping up and saying, we need to push forward is just overwhelming. And once again, I was first in line when I read about this. I did an extensive amount of research before I sat in that chair and got that shot, I will assure you, sir. And so, so I hope that's good enough.
I understand with Moderna that that may come out or at least be approved on Friday. It doesn't require the same intense cold as what Pfizer does. Is that something that the main hospitals won't get as much of because you will deal with Pfizer and then other smaller kind of units and senior citizen centers, for example, would use more than Moderna?
I have read that. I don't know that I can necessarily answer that question, sir, quite honestly.
For the people who had the virus and they waited the 14 days and they came back negative after testing positive for it, should they also get the vaccine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I believe that we know for a fact Dr. Ghali got the infection and he plans on getting the injection. So that should answer that question.
Dr. Buck, the only other question I can think of that we were curious about, is this going to be a one and done, or is this something like just like the flu shot, we're going to have to get it every year?
We're not totally sure yet. Okay, obviously we don't have enough experience with it for how long immunity lasts. There is some preliminary data that suggests that we could very likely get a long-term immunity from this. This is a different type of vaccination, messenger RNA, and some of the levels are very, very high is my understanding. And so we may have long-term immunity from this. Yes, ma'am.
And only one dose will be required, or there's?
No, it's 2 doses. You get 1 dose and then you wait 3 weeks and get the second dose. Yes. So that kind of boosts your immunity up and gets your immunity very, very high, hopefully high enough, once again, where we can get that long-term immunity.
Is it my understanding that until we get, if I was reading correctly from Anthony Fauci, that until we get to 75% of the public has this, we're still going to have to be wearing masks?
Yes, sir. It's going to require a very large percentage. Herd immunity is somewhere between 70 and 75%, and that is correct. And so we've got a long way to go. And this is just the beginning, although obviously these companies have been gearing up. There are a lot of doses of this drug available and are being shipped. And obviously, once again, all resources are being utilized. I think we all know that the armed forces are being utilized and will be utilized to distribute this whole thing and help get us going. Thank y'all. Mayor? Anything else?
If they don't have anything for me, I don't.
Well, we've always got questions for you.
Vaccine related. No, I'm kidding. What do we have?
The message, I was out talking, and Scott and I were out talking to people today, that understandably, they have, there's mixed reactions. Some do worry, just because it hasn't had a whole long track record at all. So what message would you give to the general public that's maybe nervous?
Yeah, and I'll say I'm out in the community as well, right? I hear people's concerns with this vaccine, with the history of vaccines. So I get that. But my message to our community is this: we have to rely on the experts. We just had one of the most prominent doctors in our area tell you he volunteered for the trial. He has utmost confidence in the vaccine. It's been approved by the FDA. Louisiana Department of Health is behind it. These are extremely smart people that are behind this vaccine. So we got to listen to the experts in this instance. And I myself, I'm going to take the vaccine as soon as it's available to me. And I'm going to do it on camera so everybody can see it. But this is a time for us to listen to the experts and do what we have to do, again, to return to some degree of normalcy. All right, good. Thank you all.
Appreciate it.